guys, and in this video I'm gonna show you Sumai sequencer from Bidoo that replicates some famous Elektron sequencers from Analog 4 and Digitakt. So stay tuned and I will show you some tutorial and show you how to do this patch from scratch. So why this sequencer is so cool? Just because it replicates some Elektron devices as Digitakt Analog 4 sequencer layout. So you have 16 steps, all notes per step, and choose an octave as well. Also it has a toolbox with track moving, track copying, trigger copying, pattern copying, 4 pages as well as track selection and mute chosen track. It has a switchable amount of steps, a switchable speed, so you can increase multiplication of incoming clock. You can also change read parameter to choose a sequencer, forward, backward, ping pong, random or semi-random. Also you have some options to control your ratchets per trigger. So for example, here is a length for the ratchet, amount of pulses and distance between pulse. So this is the thing, that the length parameter should be pretty tiny one, just because in this case we use gate output as a trigger. So in this settings you can get this thing worked and generates ratchets. So it sounds like a triplet, and in some cases it can mute the next step after this ratchets, like the first one here. You can watch of incoming amount of ratchets on connected cable here, and you can choose the clock from the main source or the 2 input gates, so you can generate the ratchets from there as well. And here is a trim options to control a nudge or a swing of chosen trigger. So as you can hear now is a delay a bit, so when we set a positive value it moves forward, when we set a negative one and moves backward. So yeah, here is a probability control, and by default it's set to dice, so it's kind of true and false, and value is for amount of percents of chance this trigger would be on. So when it's set to 100 it will be always on. The next one is a counter, so it's like a ratio when in what cycle this trigger would be played. So the base is amount of cycles and value is when this trigger would be playing. So as you can see now, this kick playing only on the first cycle, and the next 3 is silent, so the trigger is off. So when this set 2 to 3, kick would be playing on 2 times, and 1 time it would be silent. Also you can see CV1 and CV2 output. You can set many parameters in VCV Rack, like a velocity or specific module control. I will show you this exactly in forward patch from scratch. Here's an octave and notes layout. Looks familiar from Analog 4, Elektron Analog 4, so you can choose the desirable octave, and as you can see now I switched the last trigger from this 4th, and when you connect the 1 volt per octave output to the module you can hear the difference as well. in kick drum, of course. So here's another probabilities, like feel, and when this button would be pressed, it would be only playing with this button wheel on. So it's kind of performance tool, or you can set such a random gate outputs in VCV Rack to get this thing playing or not. So please notice this button is toggle, and I believe in Digitakt it was a momentary one. So here is also non-fill, just doing vice versa things. And here's a pre. Pre is a nice feature to get parameters of trigger states from the trigger that's set before. So when you set probability to the previous trigger, and if trigger will not playing, the set trigger to the pre also will not playing, and vice versa, and non-pre do exactly the same thing. And the neighbor is same as the pre, but relate to the neighbor tracks, so it would be useful in case of creating choke groups for heads or some kind of percussion. I think it's pretty useful in creation of some kind of TECHNO Patch from scratch, to not keep the things pretty boring. So let's start patching with the fifth track and acid module, connect to them. So let's choose a trigger and choose a note we like to play. Let's choose another one and another note. So to activate the trigger, you need to select the trigger and then select desirable note, otherwise it would be not activated. Let's set the filter to the nice acid sound, and let's triggering our kick drum. And let's switch to the acid back again, and let's connect those CV1 and CV2 outputs to the module. I don't understand exactly how attenuators works on the acid, so I'm experimenting to achieve the best results. So the main feature of this P-locks as CV1 and CV2 is make some voltage sequence on specified notes and triggers position. So you can change overall sound on different notes. It's pretty like programmed sample and hold, I think, or desirable MCAG envelope. In case of patching the track is a pretty handy, not as changeable sound over time, but using the Bidoo pattern thing that I didn't use in this patch, but it's pretty handy to clock it in less divisions clock and switch it as in Ableton Live, so we keep the pattern in sync, and that's pretty nice. So let's switch on the hi-hat. Don't forget the reset overall sequencer if you change the amount of steps, just because to keep things in sync. So the hi-hat is pretty easy to set up, and I would add a trigger, additional trigger to this offbeat and set some probability to it. So let's switch to another one. Let's find the right notes and the right place for putting triggers in there. Slide is pretty madness. It's pretty mad in there. So keep watching your 1 volt per octave output. Let's also connect those CV1 and CV2 P-locks to the module to get more various and interesting sound. Let's add a reverb or a delay. You can also use some connections to the polyphonic quantizer. For example, Bidoo has an S1 that's called Digitakt. So you can tune all of the tracks to the one scale, and it's pretty nice when you don't want to waste your time for finding what note should be there. So let's switch to another one, and I think it will be percussion. And let's switch to the 5th step to make some semi-random trigger pattern with some kind of probability on one of them or two. Also connect CV1 and CV2 output. Also, I think the Zoumai is the most compact solution in VCV Rack that has a whole features of control the over sequence and over 8 tracks simultaneously. think this is a nice thing to use in fixed track or such techno sketches and stuff like that. Pretty cool workflow and not difficult to understand actually. Like taking your Elektron machine and connect to your rack. So let's make some chord pad, something like that stuff. Reduce a high-end amount of hi-hat to make it more louder but not harsher. Let's choose another count in case of the pad. To another one. Let's try something. So let's experimenting with the trim. So the trim is a pretty unique feature of overall VCV Rack sequencers. You should always try the trim function with adjusting length. It has a pretty similar functional to the burst module, but you don't have to take some gate input for the making burst around inputting clock. Just adjusting the trim on different triggers and we will get some kind of mix between burst and swing. So we can get that kind of nice percussion. Let's make some last 8 track and let's try those mysterious gate inputs, but in practice it's just change incoming clock to incoming gates. And I think we should get some higher values to get some audible ratches. You can hear that. gate feature also appear in Bidoo and Detroit, inspired by Metropolis sequencer from IntelliGel. Also highly recommend to use that. So now I'm done with Zoumai controls, I believe, and adjusting some overall patch to get some nice groovy sound. You can also use those rampage envelope generator that I placed as a bottom. But I think CV1 and CV2 output make some nice work here. So we've got already a huge amount of modulations from there, stepped modulation. And if you want to reduce those stepness, you can also use a slew limiter. I can also recommend to use a slate slew limiter that also has 8 channels. Just put your CVs to the gate inputs and then connect outputs and send it to the parameter you want. So it's nice practice at the end of the patch adjusting the voice just by soloing to find a nice balance between sources in the mix. Personally, I would also add in this module such kind of note probability. For example, at this count it would be a C4, and for the next cycle it would be D3 or something like that. I think it's pretty nice, but it seems to be not there. Pretty modular guy, you can use such modules as a fade from geodesics and put those CV and control the little amount of probability to get a random parameter time to time, but again you need a quantizer to keep it in the one scale. And this thing I actually like about Sumai, you don't have to have a quantizer, just like in your favorite DAW, for example Ableton Live. Just choose the notes you decide to do the right job, and you'll get immediately a result. So it's not like a pretty modular way to patching that. So that's why probably people love Elektron gears in the world, just because it has those sequencers in their machines. Not only, of course, but the sequencer is definitely a heart of every Elektron device. Let's add some character to our percussion, something like that. that is pretty much menu diving in there. But again, I should repeat that this sequencer is good for some techno sketches or minimal stuff in VCV Rack when you don't want to gamble with all of those wall of the sequencers, node sequencers, trigger sequencers. Just place your performance in the one place. This is pretty good idea to use this module. Now I just want to make the kick a bit longer. And also you can hear that the one octave down acid module. And those ratchets and track 8 are amazing. And they are not annoying just because it repeats only one per 3 cycles. So thank you for watching, guys. You can find this patch and template on my Patreon. I hope you will use this Sumai sequencer pretty much, and goodbye, guys.